and an informal welcome to Think Different. This is our Tanya series, and we are going to rock and roll with the Tanya. This is chapter 53, rock and roll. Are you ready? Oh, do the rock and roll. Yeah, oh, sure. Okay, rock and roll with Tanya. Excuse me. So tonight we talk about the Ark of the Covenant and the tablets and the 10 Commandments and the Shrina and the spiritual significance of it all. First issue I want to address is where is the Ark? What happened to the Ark? There are many theories as to what happened to the Ark. Many a theory has it that when the Romans came in and destroyed the temple, they pillaged the Ark and they took it, and it's somewhere in the Vatican. That is a very popular theory. There's also, of course, if you are familiar with the film, maybe trilogy, maybe not trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you will know that I didn't really watch it, but my understanding is at least that it was about what happened to the Ark and discovering it, and there and there was a question about not a question. There were Nazis involved or something in one of the things, right? Or whatever in the movie. Who remembers? But either way, Raiders of the Lost Ark is all about the Lost Ark. But I want to tell you something. We've discussed this before, and I think I even shared the sources with you. Maimonides writes clearly, and this is not in his works of philosophy, but rather in his work of halacha, in his work of Jewish law. He says that during the time of at the end of the first temple era, when things were kind of starting to head a little south, in other words, like the expression goes, the handwriting was on the wall, kind of saw what was going to happen. This wasn't going to last forever. What happened was the Levites got the command from the king, and what they did was they took the ark and they buried the ark underneath the temple in the secret tunnels of the Temple Mount.
What? I think I got
secret tunnels of the Temple Mount.
Wait.
And you have something?
I think my mother told me like a book that like little kids went to like a cave.
Oh.
And the teacher like passed away, and like another teacher came.
Okay, cool. All right, maybe it's a different cave. So they hid it in these secret tunnels and passageways under the Temple Mount. And according to Jewish tradition, there it remains to this very day. And thus, says Maimonides, that is one of the reasons why the Temple Mount area is still considered to have an element, not only an element, but to possess a holiness. Why is it holy? Because it has the ark, and the ark is the core of the Holy of Holies. In other words, what makes the temple holy? Well, it's a temple of God, but what are the essential features of a holy temple? It's that space called the Holy of Holies. And what makes the Holy of Holies a Holy of Holies? That it has an ark. So what that means is, if we posit that the ark is still buried under the temple, in the Temple Mount, in the tunnels, what that means is that the holiness, the core holiness of the temple is still there, but it goes much deeper than this. And I'm sharing with you an insight that the Rebbe shared on this teaching of Maimonides. Maimonides lived, in the 1100s? He lived like 900 years ago. The Rebbe has a beautiful teaching and insight on this idea. And the Rebbe, one second, Shalom, look at me, right here, the whole box. And the Rebbe says that there are two types, there are two structures of the temple. There's the above ground temple and there's the below ground temple. In other words, there's the temple that you and I can see, right? The temple that you and I can see in the sense that it's above ground. I'm saying back in the day, right? Above ground and it's visible. And then there's the subterranean temple, but they both possess the same core element, the same ark of the covenant with the tablets inside of it. And thus it contains the same holiness, which means essentially, as the Rebbe says, the temple, the core of the temple, get this, was never destroyed. In other words, only the above ground shell was destroyed, but the core of the temple was never destroyed. So it's not, the Rebbe says, it's not that the temple, the first temple was destroyed. Then they built a second temple. Then the second temple was destroyed. And now it's been 2,000 years. But we hope and pray for Mashiach when a third temple will be rebuilt. And until then, we don't have a temple. The Rebbe says on one level, on a deeper level, that's not at all the story. The story is the first temple was built. The Ark of the Covenant was there. The Ark of the Covenant was buried, and it's still there. And there was a shell above ground to hold it. Second temple, there was a shell above ground, but it was still below ground. It didn't come back up, the second temple. It stayed below ground, but it was still holy. Why? Because it possessed, it still has the other features of the temple, including the altar and other things, but the ark was below ground. The second temple was destroyed. The ark was still below ground. And so that core holiness never changes. All that changes is kind of the above ground, shell. So I don't want to minimize it, but it's like the above ground structure. And so it's not that there are three different temples, the Rebbe says. There's one temple, right? There's one core temple that remains everlasting. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yes? Sort of? Ish? Yes? Riva, you're saying ish? Okay. Riva's not so sure. Anyway, the point is, the Rebbe likens this to life and death. The Rebbe likens this to the life, the physical life of human beings. So typically we think that human beings live, human beings are born, and they live for a certain number of years, and then are no longer. And then when Mashiach comes, we believe that there's going to be Tchiyat HaMeitim, the resurrection of the dead, and we'll live once again. And the Rebbe says that's not the case, because according to the Talmud, there's a part of the body that remains eternal. It's called the luz bone, right? The luz bone. Many of you have taken classes with me about this, and have learned about this luz bone. Essentially, there is a bone in the back of the neck that's considered to be eternal and last forever, according to Jewish tradition, and it is this luz bone from which the body will be rebuilt when Mashiach comes, and those who have lived and passed will live once again. And so, what's the point? The point is simple: that the body, part of the body, is eternal, right? It's not like there's a body and then not a body and then a body again. It's the same core body. If you want to use language like DNA, it's the same DNA that is basically built up around for that new rebuilding of the body. It's not a new body, it's a continuation of the same. It was just in a bit of a different state in that interim. So what's the point? The point is that we believe that the ark is still there, Temple Mount. It hasn't been found. There are stories, I believe in the Talmud, I want to say, stories in our tradition of people who got close to finding it, and it wasn't a good thing to look for. So that's probably where some of these, like, I guess, Raiders of the Lost Ark, or some of these, like, wild stories come from, about, getting too close and it being not a good thing for the one who gets too close. But be that as it may, we believe that the ark is still there. Now, here's the thing. What makes the ark the ark? Yes. Sure. So what makes the ark the ark? 1 second. Yes.
Can you put it? Tomorrow, can you put the box in the fridge?
Okay. So what makes the ark so special? It's what the ark holds. And what does the ark hold? The ark holds the two tablets. And why are the two tablets special? Because they contain the writing of God. They contain the writing of God of the Ten Commandments. And as we'll see tonight, this is going to be a major topic of discussion for us in chapter 53 of Tanya. We're going to talk about the tablets, the writing of God on the tablets, the idea of the Shrina, the divine presence that rests on the tablets and in the ark. But primarily, we'll speak about the power of the divine flow of energy that goes straight from the source into the tablets, into Torah. And when you and I study Torah, it is another form of that unbroken continuum of holiness. And here's really the big idea. And this is what I find really fascinating. After 53 chapters of Tanya, ultimately, we're going to circle back to the basic foundational idea of Tanya, which is that when you and I study Torah or do a mitzvah, that's it. That's the whole purpose. That's like connecting top and bottom. That is absolutely living the dream spiritually. That is absolutely doing what we need to be doing and bringing heaven down to earth and connecting the most spiritual with the most mundane, and it like releases the greatest light into the world. And that's it. So we could talk about meditation, we can talk about all sorts of lofty things, but at the end of the day, it's doing the mitzvah, studying the Torah that is at the core of all. All right, so I think we're ready to jump into chapter 53. It's really, yes, Adina Malka.
What I remember hearing that the Romans held up those two angels on either.
Yes.
If they got those angels?
Excellent question. Excellent. The Rebbe addresses it. There is a discussion. It could be even the Talmud addresses it. I believe the Talmud addresses it, but it's cited in the Rebbe's talk on this topic as well. Essentially, in the Holy of Holies, there was a golden, I don't know what you would call it, like an overlay, a golden overlay. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Okay, there was a golden overlay that depicted the cover over the ark. In other words, the ark was a box, right? A box where the tablets were inside, and then it had a golden cover, right, as you know, and it had the angels with the wings facing each other. And so that image was actually on the wall inside the Holy of Holies. 1 second, gold, like a gold plated, I don't know what you would call it even, on the wall, like a gold plated, I'm going to use the word relief, but I don't even know, right? I mean, it's like a thing. However,
fresco.
What is it? Fresco?
Maybe a fresco. Yeah.
I actually prefer Sprite, but I mean, listen, everyone's got their own. Oh, that's Fresca. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so it could be, I'm not sure what it's called, but here's the thing. It says the Romans, that's what they took off the wall. And that's what they saw when they held up and said, look, the Jews, they talk about an imageless God, and they talk about, no one's allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. Look at what they're worshiping. Look at the core. It's like two angels embracing. Are you kidding me? Right? Like this embrace of two angelic figures. So in other words, and let me explain Adina Malka's question, which is an excellent question. If the Romans got a hold of it, so then it wasn't buried, right? So obviously it wasn't buried. So what are you talking about? And so the answer is, again, one of the explanations is, and there's a classic explanation, is that no, the ark was buried. They got an image of it, which was enough to depict the scene inside. Now, why would they need a picture of the scene to depict it if it was there? I don't know. I don't know what the story, the origin story of that golden image of the ark. Maybe there's verses that speak to that. So those details I'm not so 100% clear on, but that's the core idea of this. So what we're going to do is jump inside Tanya, and we'll jump into chapter 53. And in chapter 53, we're going to look at it's the final chapter. It's like after all the philosophy, it gets back down to action. It's like, are we studying and doing the right thing? It's like so simple. I don't mean simple in an egg way. It's so straightforward in a beautiful way. Okay, I'm pulling out the chapter here for myself and making it full screen on my computer. Then I'm going to share it with y'all. Let's see if this works. All right, stay with me, please. All right, I hope you can see that. Chapter 53 of Tanya. Oh, okay, here we go. Check this out. Let's read this. We don't usually do this, but I like this little preamble. It's kind of cool. Okay, here we go. This is not Tanya itself. This is this edition of Tanya, which the lessons in Tanya, which we're studying. So this is the editorial remarks that kind of, there's usually like a bit of a preamble before each chapter of kind of like, this is what the chapter is going to talk about, or this is what we just learned, and this is the continuation. So I just want to go through this one. So the Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya, explained in the previous chapter that the light, that the light of the Shrina, Shrina means divine presence, an illumination utterly transcending the realm of the world, must have a garment which enables it to radiate there. So again, the light of the Shrina, which, by the way, if we want to identify a Shrina, what is the Shrina? It's also referred to as the dimension of Malchut of Atzilut, the lowest of the 10 energies of the highest world of Atzilut, the world of emanation. So it's the Malchut energy of the world of emanation. Okay, so the Shrina is a light that transcends the worlds beneath it, certainly our world. So it must have a garment that enables the light to radiate there, because again, without the garment, it's just too big and too bright and too blinding. So it needs kind of like some sort of container. It needs a grasp in order to be found there. It's kind of like an idea that's so abstract, no one can understand it. You have to ground it in something, and that's the garment that kind of allows it to settle in a certain space. So to the light of the Shrina needs to have a garment. What is the garment? We said last week, the garment of the Shrina is Torah. Torah is considered to be the garment of the divine presence. So in other words, where is God's infinite light to be found? In the Torah. In every world, let's continue. In every world, this is all from last week. In every world, there is found the intelligence of that particular world. In other words, the three intellectual powers of that world, namely the Sfirot of Chachma, Bina, and Dat of that world, which the acronym of which is Chabad, they constitute the shrine of the Holy of Holies in which the Shrina resides. So again, let's follow the language here. The top three energies of any given world are the intellectual energies of Chachma, Bina, and Dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, Chabad. And that is considered to be the Holy of Holies of that particular world. In other words, it's the most spiritual part of that world, are its highest three dimensions. Its core, its highest point are those three energies, the intellectual powers. So it's called the Holy of Holies. And that's where the Shrina resides primarily. The Shrina being the big light that was almost too transcendent until it enclosed itself into Torah. So it is found, the headquarters of each world is in the top three energies, the Chabad of that world. After the levels of Chabad in which resides the Shrina descend into the level of Malchut of a particular world, the creatures of that world are then created. So what happens is the Malchut of a higher world comes into the Chabad of the next world down, and it's there, the seat of its headquarters. It's the Shrina, that's where it hangs out. It's called the Holy of Holies. And then when that light continues to descend in that world until it hits the Malchut, the lowest level of that world, It then creates from Malchut the beings, angels and souls of that realm. That's what we said last week. Let me take a drink, 1 second. Let's continue. By vesting itself in Malchut, moreover, the light of the Shrina is then able to descend into the shrine of the Holy of Holies of the next lower world, right? So essentially, the light, the Shrina from a higher world comes into the next world down, hangs out in the upper 3 dimensions, then passes through to the lowest point of that world, creates things, and then heads on down to the next world below it, right? It's kind of like, I'm just trying to think of an analogy. Imagine, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm just thinking out loud here. So imagine you're on an elevator. So you start off on floor number 4 and you hit down and you go down to floor number 3. That's actually not a great analogy, whatever. So you go down from one world to the next world, but you hit the upper level of that next world. Then it goes down to the lowest element of that world, creates stuff, and then it continues the journey down to the world below it.
Rabbi,
All right.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
how many worlds are there? I thought it was I thought it was God and us.
No, Kabbalah says there's, well, kind of, sort of, but Kabbalah breaks it down into details of in between us and God, there are these steps. Now, you might wonder, why does God need steps? Couldn't God have just created, boom, there's a world? Why do you need this world, that world, the other world? The truth is, God doesn't need that. He could have just poof, created us, and that's it. But then we wouldn't have any way to climb back up. See, God doesn't need a ladder down, but we need a ladder up, if that makes sense. So by creating, right, by creation unfolding through the construct of sort of a ladder that folds down, there is this possibility for give me a second.
So you said there's 5 worlds.
4.
4.
Give me a second. All right. Yeah, there's 4 worlds, and the highest is called the world of emanation. Then there's the world of creation. Then there's the world of formation, and then the world of action. And we exist in the world of action. Action meaning a more physical or aphysical environment. We are where all the theory of creation is concretized, the world of action. So basically, Malchut of the world of emanation goes down into the world of creation, the next world down, kind of does its thing there, has its headquarters in Chabad, but then filters down and then goes to the Malchut of that level and then creates all the stuff of the world of creation, but then goes down to the world of formation and beneath it. It does the same thing and then goes down to the world of action and does its thing. So that's basically the process. So look at this. The Alter Rebbe, we're up to this sentence in 1, 2, third paragraph, last sentence. The Alter Rebbe explained this process as it applies to all worlds down to and including the spiritual world of Asiya, which is the world of action. Oh, the world of Asiya, the world of action has 2 parts to it, the spiritual dimension and the physical dimension. So that's the process as it comes down into at least the spiritual side of this world. Now, in chapter 53, our chapter, the author, he will go on to explain how the light of the Shrina descends and illuminates it. It descends and illuminates this physical world. So now we're going to talk about how the light comes here. Listen to this. During the times of the first and second temple, the Shrina, the divine presence, Malchut of Atzilut, this infinite light, was housed in the Holy of Holies. See that? Today, where's it? It finds its abode in a Jew's study of Torah and performance of the Mitzvot. Look at that. When we study Torah and do Mitzvot, powerful stuff. He will also explain the difference between the level of illumination of the Shrina in the first and second Beit HaMikdash, the first and second temple, on the one hand, and the level of Shrina, which is drawn down through the study of Torah and performance of Mitzvot, on the other. So we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty in this chapter, but that's a good introduction. So let's begin. Here we go. At the time the first temple stood, which is going back, let's do the math. 2,800 years ago or so. At the time the first temple stood, in which the ark and the tablets were housed in the Holy of Holies, in other words, above ground, ready to go, the Shrina, which is Malchut of Atzilut, that is the revealed light of the Ein Sof, a light which intrinsically is infinite and transcends all worlds, and which nevertheless was revealed in them magically through this garment filter, right? But that light, the Shrina, dwelled there. Where's there? In the Holy of Holies, right? And was clothed where? In the 10 Commandments, in the tablets, which were engraved, the 10 Commandments, which were engraved upon the tablets found in the ark in the Holy of Holies. So again, listen to what he's saying here. Where was the epicenter, the spiritual epicenter of our physical world? Where was the point of resting? Where was the point of contact of God's infinite light in this world? It was in the writing or the inscription, engraved of the 10 Commandments that were found in the ark box in the Holy of Holies, in that space.
Can you say that again?
Sure, absolutely. So we have this Shrina. The Shrina means divine presence, but it means basically the light of God. And we said in each world, the space of where the Shrina hangs out is the Chabad of the highest point of that world. What about our world, the physical world? Where's the Shrina? So he says in the times of the first temple, where was the Shrina primarily? Look, God is everywhere, but where's the revealed light? The revealed light was in the engraving of the 10 Commandments on the tablets in the ark in the Holy of Holies. So if you walked into the Holy of Holies, walked over to the ark, opened up the ark, took out the tablets and looked at the writing, that is where the illumination of the divine presence was to be found. Not a physical light, but a spiritual presence. And this is where, Shrina, dwell there far more intensely. This type of manifestation was done there far more intensely and with a greater and mightier revelation than its revelation in the shrines of the Holy of Holies above in the upper worlds. Listen to that bombshell. This is a bombshell right here. He says the degree to which God's Shrina, the divine presence, was revealed in this world, in the temple, in the Holy of Holies, in the Ark of the Covenant, in the engraving on the tablets, the degree in which God's presence was revealed there is greater than the upper worlds, the world of emanation, of creation, of formation, the spiritual world of action. This space, this manifestation of God in the tablets, in this world, in the Holy of Holies, was to an even greater dimension than even in the spiritual realms. The question is, why? Why is it that God's light was shining here more than in the more spiritual realms? You would think that in the realm of angels and souls, there was more Shrina. Why is it more here? He explains, for the 10 Commandments are the all-embracing principles of the whole Torah. The 10 Commandments are no small potatoes. The 10 Commandments are the klolos. It's translated here as all-embracing principles. That's not a bad translation. In other words, it's like the foundation, but more than foundation. It's the klal. How do you translate klal? Yeah, it's an all-embracing principle. In other words, imagine like a core idea that encompasses all the other ideas. So if you, by the way, there are, take a look at this little commentary here. As explained in the Azharot of Reb Sadia Gaon, who was a great scholar in yesteryear, he explains how the 10 Commandments incorporate all 613 Mitzvot of the Torah. So you see what, okay, let me explain what that is. basically we know that there's 613 mitzvot, commandments in the Torah throughout the 5 books of Moses. This rabbi, Rabbi Saadia Gaon, who lived 1,000+ years ago. So Rabbi Saadia Gaon explains and traces how every single mitzvah is somehow found in those 10 commandments. How any, like, I'm going to use the word random, but no mitzvahs are random, but any particular mitzvah that you can imagine, right? Leaving the corners of the field for the poor, if you're a farmer. He's like, boom, that's in one of the 10 commandments. That's included in one of the 10 commandments. And I don't know which one that is, but he goes, because I haven't studied that, but he goes through all 613 and he traces them back to the 10 commandments. In other words, the 10 commandments aren't just like the top 10. They're the 10 all-encompassing ideas that all of the other mitzvot are included within somehow. So which means if we only got the 10 commandments, somehow that would also include everything else. So let me just retrace, because that was all like the little commentary thing. But let's go back to the core translation. So he says, so why is it that Shrina is found so deeply in the Holy of Holies? For the 10 commandments are the all-embracing principles of the whole Torah, okay, which derives, where does the Torah come from? Torah derives from the level of supernal Chachma v'atzilut. Atzilut is emanation, the highest world, and Chachma is the highest point of the highest world. So Torah comes from the top of the whole chain of worlds that is far higher than the typical world of manifestation, i.e. that which is revealed. So take a look at this. The source of Torah is far higher than Malchut of Atzilut. That's the lowest point of Atzilut, which is called the world of manifestation because it reveals the light of the Ein Sof to the worlds. As explained earlier, for this reason, the Torah is able to act as a garment that does not become nullified in the light of the Shrina, which garbs itself in it, since its source is higher than the Shrina, right? The Torah comes from Chachma v'Atzilut, whereas the Shrina itself only comes from Malchut of Atzilut. However, in order for the Torah to act as a concealing garment, it must descend lower than the Shrina, thereby enabling the light of the Shrina to be received by created beings. So in other words, it's kind of like, I'm just going to use my hands. Torah comes from here, the Shrina comes from here, but Torah descends lower, and then the Shrina can rest inside, be garbed inside the Torah. However, look at this line. As Torah descended into the 10 commandments engraved on the tablets, it did not do so in a manner that would make it similar to other physical things. Rather, as will soon be explained, it remained on a level which is higher than the previously mentioned upper worlds. In other words, most things, as they descend below, they become modified. They become somehow changed by the descent. But the Torah, the way it comes into the 10 commandments on the tablets, that remains pure. That remains untouched. That remains unaltered. That remains uncompromised. To give you an example of the subway. All right, who's familiar with the New York City subway? Yes, New York City subway. Okay, good. You can take the local and you can take the express. What's the difference? Right? You're going from Brooklyn to Manhattan or Manhattan to Brooklyn. Doesn't matter, right? You can take the local or the express. The local stops 14th Street, 18th Street, 24th Street, right? It's stopping at every few blocks. The express is going for a while. The Torah, as contained in the tablets, is the express. It goes down, straight connection from the top to the bottom, without getting stuck at all the stops, without getting stuck in the middle with all the stops. So most things, the way they descend through the worlds is they stop at each exit. And in each exit, more people get on and the disposition of the train car changes. And it's like a different reality with every stop, right? And so by the time you get to your destination, it's a whole different crowd than how you started. In other words, and you're sitting, you're standing, you're moving, you're altered from when you started. But the express Same chevra, the same folks as you were at the beginning, you are at the end. I mean, hopefully, right? Untouched, unchanged, if all goes well. So what's the point? There are things that descend from top to bottom without being changed, without being modified, without being altered. And what is that? That is the Torah taking the form of the 10 commandments engraved on the tablets. All right, let me continue sharing so we can get back inside. Where's my browser now? What am I doing now? Okay, here we go. Let's see if this works. Okay, here we go. Let's continue. In order to engrave them on material tablets of stone, right? So in order to engrave the 10 commandments on physical tablets of stone, it's supernal chachma, which is Torah, did not descend degree by degree, parallel to the order of descent of the worlds. That's the local, right? Which descend by stages from a higher world to a lower world until it reached this material world. No, for this material world functions through the garb of material nature, right? So everything else goes through garment after garment after garment until it becomes modified and changed. While the tablets, even as they exist in this world, are considered Ma'aseh Elokim, the work of God, a divine creation in which godliness, not nature, is revealed. When you looked at the tablets, you didn't see stone. You didn't see a physical creation. You saw the work of God. And that's what was in the ark. That's what was in the Holy of Holies, in the temple. That's what made it so holy. There was an item. There was an item in the Holy of Holies. There was an item in the temple. In the Ark of the Covenant. That wasn't normal. It wasn't usual. It was unusual. Instead of being something that was a physical, physically created item, it was straight from the source. It's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I mean, no analogies exist here. I mean, I gave you a subway example, but I'm thinking of an analogy of,
I don't know.
like, Riva, you don't know of an analogy? Okay, well, I'm going to work on one.
I don't even know what that.
You don't know what an analogy is? It's like an example. It's like a story. So imagine like a, like.
Is it like descended?
Is it what? Sorry?
Descended?
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know, Clark Kent or whatever, Lahavdo, right? So like that story where from another planet, like, I don't remember the origin story, but like that thing came from the pod or whatever it is, right? He came in a pod or something. Do we know the story? Superman originally from Krypton, from the planet Krypton or whatever.
Yeah.
That's my comic book. I can't
wait.
remember.
Is that like the book?
It's like the book. What book?
Like the Superman.
How do you know Superman books? No way.
No, like you remember the Sabbath, you read me like that book.
I don't know that I was reading Superman, but maybe something else. All right. So somehow, huh?
I'm serious.
Maybe. Somehow this dude comes from a different planet down here, and it's like a completely different thing. So the point is that most things are of this world. The tablets are other. Oh, that's maybe a good phrase. They're otherworldly. They're other nature. They're a completely different sauce, a completely different type of reality. It's a different DNA. It's not physical or human or natural or materialistic. It's the work of God. It's a divine creation. And the writing, so the tablets were the work of God, and the writing of God, writing in which godliness is perceived. You saw God when you looked at the tablets. You saw, now no one really did, but if you would see God. And it's beyond the nature of this material world, which is derived from the radiance of the Shrina and the shrine of the Holy of Holies of Asiya, from which light and vitality issue to the world of Asiya, in which this physical world is also included. In other words, everything else, the nature of this material world, everything else is a derivation of a derivation of a derivation. The light comes down and it goes in from Malchut of one world to the Chabad of the next world, and then it flows through that world till it hits that level of Malchut, and then it creates some things, and it goes down to the lower world, step by step by step by step by step by step, very progressive from one level to the other, taking the light down, down, down. But each stage, it gets garbed and modified and materialized and changed. Whereas the tablets come straight from the source, direct line, straight down, express train, express elevator, didn't stop at all the floors, top to the bottom, pure expression of what was at the top, unaltered, unmodified, uncensored, unregulated. It's just the pure divine energy from the source, from Chachma Vatzilut, the highest point of the highest world, not the Malchut of Atzilut, not the lowest point of that highest world, the highest point of the highest world, incarnate, right? Incarnated in a form of the tablets and the writing on the tablets. It was completely this paragraph beyond the nature of this material world.
But Ari,
Because the nature of this material world is derived from this step-by-step process, but this bypassed the step-by-step process straight from the top to the bottom. Adina Malka, go ahead.
Well, does that relate to, how does that relate to when Moses couldn't see the face of God? He had to hide in a crack.
That might be even beyond that.
can't live, yeah.
I would say that's beyond that. You know,
Yeah.
that's not just the Torah, that's like the essence of God, so to speak. So that I would say is even, you know, that can't be seen whatsoever. This is still along the lines of revelation, but it's kind of like the highest form of revelation without being obstructed. It's just in the straight from the top into the tablets. So we're not talking about the essence. It's still revelation, but it's the highest point of that revelation.
But
Good
Ari,
question.
I
Yeah,
hate to ask,
Mark.
but the tablets we have were the tablets that God wrote. They're the tablets that Moses wrote.
No, God wrote them. God wrote the second tablets.
Oh, I thought Moses wrote the second tablets.
Moses cut the stones, but
Okay.
God wrote on it.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah. If you look, by the way, can you see me hover over that? Do you see the little pop-up?
Yeah.
Exodus 32:16. Do you see that right there? That Exodus 32:16?
Right.
That's after the sin of the golden calf, and this is the second tablets. I believe.
Dun, dun.
Bum bum. We
Okay.
could get a chumash, but anyway, the second tablets also said that it's the writing of God. But Moses was the one who collected the stones, but then God wrote on it. So it still has that incredible spiritual energy to it. Now take a look at what he says over here. Here we go.
Oh.
Here, let's look at this little intermediate. Listen, there's a lot of Kabbalistic concepts here, which is why it's a little bit harder to explain. These last two chapters are harder to explain, I'm saying for me, to teach, because the concepts are really encoded in the Kabbalistic terminology. These are like, we're talking about dimensions. So like when we talk about like human beings and, you know, love and fear and awe and respect, we talk about stuff that we can relate to, so I can use human terms, but we're literally talking about Malchut of Atzilut being manifest in Chachma of Bria. We're not talking about human experience. We're talking about divine entities and divine energies. So this is the general disclaimer of the last two chapters. It's a little harder to explain in our terms because it's not talking about stuff of this world. I mean, we're not talking about the tablets, but it's still like otherworldly stuff. Let's get back inside. I hope that makes sense what I just said. The ray of the Shrina is Malchut of Atzilut, the lowest dimension of Atzilut, the highest world, which is the shrine of the Holy of Holies of Asiya, gives this physical world its vitality after first being garbed in Malchut of Asiya, as explained earlier. This was not the case with the tablets. In other words, everything else, all of the other energy that comes into this world has gone through all of the local stops along the way. It stopped here, it stopped there, it stopped there, it stopped there. And every stop, it kind of gained another garment. It gained another modification. It gained another, interpretation. When I say interpretation, I mean like, the light is somehow, diminished based on that realm and that world and that context, but not the tablets. But the level of the supernal Chachma Vatzilut, consisting of the totality of the Torah as it is encapsulated in the Ten Commandments, clothed itself in Malchut of Atzilut and Abriya alone, and did not clothe itself in the lower worlds. And they alone, let's skip that, united as they are with the infinite light of the Ein Sof that is within them, are referred to as the Shrina, which rested in the Holy of Holies of the first temple through its being vested in the Ten Commandments, which were engraved by miraculous means in the tablets reposing in the ark. So basically, we have this pure light from above that is going straight, passing through. It does pass through, but it doesn't stop. It passes through all of the worlds until it gets down to this world, into the tablets, in the inscription containing the Ten Commandments in a miraculous way, and it's that light that is shining there. And this is the engraving that was done with miraculous means. What does that mean? That the engraving, it was engraved by miraculous means. And I know some of you know this, and we've talked about this before, but let's take a look at this little commentary here. As the sages tell us, and this is from the Talmud, Megillah 2b, it says the letters Mem and Samach, circular letters hewn through the entire thickness of the stone, stood in their place miraculously. So I need to explain this. Work with me for a moment. Imagine a stone slate, right? Imagine a tablet. Don't go too thick on me. Just imagine like a thing. You know what? Let me make it easier. Let me make it much easier. One second. Make it much easier. Imagine a piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to settle on final answer. Imagine a piece of wood. And imagine you take a saw.
Bing bong.
That you can somehow start in the middle of the wood, not from the edge, if such a thing exists. I imagine like a saw that comes down to pierce it. Yeah, you imagine you start in the middle of this, you have a square of wood, you start in the middle, and imagine you make a circle. And you go all the way through. All the way through the circle. Okay? And you make a thick circle. So you cut out like an inch around in a circle. So now you have the wood around, and you have the circle that you cut, and then there's the little block of wood, right? That's inside the circle, right? Then imagine if you hold up the piece of wood and that little wood circle, the cutout, imagine if that stays in place and floats. Impossible, right? That's what happened with the tablets. The stones were engraved through and through. That's what our sages tell us. It wasn't just engraved on one side of the tablets. It went all the way through to both sides. And no matter which side you read it from, it read correctly. That's one miracle, right? Because typically if you engrave through and through, one way it makes sense, the other way it's backwards. But no, with the tablets, it was through and through, and whichever side you read it on, it worked. But more than that, the letters Mem and Samach, which are those square or circle letters that kind of go all the way around, have a closed circuit. The inside floated. That's what it says over here. As the sages tell us, the letters Mem and Samach, circular letters or square, hewn through the entire thickness of the stone, stood in their place miraculously. The inside circle or square didn't fall down. It stayed right there. Okay, let's continue. So that's miraculous means. Moreover, the 10 commandments upon the tablets were the work of the living God, Elokim Chayim. This being in terms of the Sfirot, Bina Vatzilut, which is known as the concealed world, which nests in the world of Bria, as is known to the students of the Kabbalah. Again, pinpointing Kabbalistic, mystical Sfirot and energies to kind of paint the picture of what we're talking about here. What's the point? The point of all of this is to extol the level of the tablets. The tablets were unbelievable. They were the writing of God, miracles, right? The pass-through of energy that didn't get stuck anywhere else. That's pure, infinite light manifest in a tablet, in the ark, in the Holy of Holies, in the temple. Take a look. What about the second temple? As for the second temple, in which the ark and the tablets did not repose above ground, right? It didn't have, you walked in there was no ark. You didn't see the ark. You didn't see the tablets. I said before they were hidden, but they weren't in the upper building. They weren't there. I gave you a mystical, a deeper Hasidic understanding that in reality, at the core, it was there because it's underground, but visually, it wasn't there. And these are among the 5 things that were found in the first temple that were lacking in the second. There were 5 things. In addition to the ark and tablets, there were other items that were around for the first temple that never came back with the second temple. So regarding the second temple, so the question is, right? The question is, so then where is God's Shrina manifest? If the Shrina, if the divine presence was manifest in the tablets, in the ark, in the first temple, so what about the second temple? There was no ark with tablets there above ground. So he says, our rabbis of blessed memory said that the Shrina did not abide there. This means not that, God forbid, the Shrina did not abide there at all. Rather, it speaks of the category of the Shrina which used to abide in the first temple, which was not in the manner of ordinary descent of the worlds. In other words, in the first temple, it was this like supernatural light and manifestation that was manifest there. The second temple was a little bit different. So it was this level of Shrina, the higher level of Shrina that we're talking about, that did not abide in the second temple, but rather only a far lesser level. But in the second temple, it abided according to the order of gradual descent. So there was the divine presence, but it took the local, not the express, in the second temple. It went through the levels, and it was a bit modified, a bit lowered down from its original state. But in the second temple, it abided according to the order of gradual descent of Malchut of Atzilut, vested in Malchut of Bria, and the latter Malchut of Bria, and the Malchut of Yetzirah, and then Malchut of Yetzirah, and the shrine of the Holy Holies of Asiya, that shrine being Chabad of Asiya. The Holy of Holies of Asiya was clothed in the Holy of Holies of the temple below. So it did follow the typical structure of level into next level, and it becomes assimilated on that level, and then it goes to the next level, and it becomes assimilated in that level, and then it goes to level down. And so it was the more progressive, I don't know if I'm using that term correctly in this, but it was the more of a step-by-step descent type of flow in the second temple. In it rested the Shrina Malchut of Yetzirah, which was clothed in the Holy Holies of Asiya. Therefore, because the Shrina resided in the temple's Holy of Holies, no man was permitted to enter there. That's why it was so holy, right? Because it was so holy, that's why the law is that you couldn't just go there, except the high priest on Yom Kippur, and you can't make this up. That's literally this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion talks about no man should go there except on Yom Kippur. So now, did I know 10 years ago that we would be studying chapter 53 that talks about the spiritual meaning of why you weren't just allowed to hang out in the Holy of Holies because it had this unfiltered Shrina there? Did I know that we were going to study it on that week? No. But God has a way of arranging things in perfect synchronicity. So he says this is the spiritual reason for this law. The law is can't go there, except the high priest on Yom Kippur. Fine, he's allowed to go there one day a year for one purpose. But otherwise, he can't go there. Why? Because the Shrina resided there in an unfiltered fashion. And since the destruction of the temple, of which the sanctuary was a part, God resides. Okay. This is going to be the pivot that we're going to This is going to be the pivot. I'll end here, but this is we're going to pick it up next week also. Since the destruction of the temple, of the second temple, even of which the sanctuary was a part, so God resides where? If there's no Holy of Holies, again, above ground, there's no ark, there's no tablets. So what do? Where's God? God resides in the shrine of the Holy of Holies of Torah and Mitzvot. First mentioned earlier, the Shrina must reside in the Holy of Holies. So Shrina has to go into the Holy of Holies. So in the holiest space, what's the holiest space that visibly that we have today? It's Torah and Mitzvot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, has but the 4 cubits of halacha alone. What's God's space today? We don't have a temple. We don't have a Holy of Holies. We don't have an ark. We don't have the tablets. Again, above ground. Sure, at the core, everything's there. But what do we have visibly? What's the holiest space today? It may not be a physical space, but it's a conceptual space. What is that space? The 4 cubits, that's 6 feet. Social distancing, right? That's the space of halacha of Jewish law. Where is God found? Where's the Shrina revealed? When we study Torah and we do mitzvot, that's how we interface. That's how we connect, plug in to God. Let's do this little piece right here. Torah is the shrine of the Holy of Holies that connects God with the world, so that HaKadosh, the illumination of the Shrina, which is Kadosh, holy, separated and apart from the world, should become Baruch, from the Hebrew word meaning to drawn down into the world. So HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Kadosh means removed, but Baruch Hu means brought down into the world. Where is the transcendent energy drawn down into the world? In the area, in the space of Torah and Mitzvot, of halacha, of Jewish law, etc. And even if one Jew sits and engages in Torah study, the Shrina is with him. You don't need to make a pilgrimage. You need to go to Jerusalem. You don't need to get a tour of the Temple Mount. You just sit down in your house by yourself, even certainly with more people, but even one person sitting and studying Torah, that infinite energy of God is with him or her. As is stated in the first chapter of Brachot of the Mishnah and Talmud, Tractate Brachot. The phrase, the Shrina is with him, means that although he is a being of this material world, him, physical person, still the Shrina is nevertheless with him. That's incredible. All right, we're going to stop here because, we could literally keep on going. But next week, we will have our Grand Siyum celebration as we conclude Tanya. And I need to point out the way I started today. After all of the spiritual conversations, and the last few weeks has been like super spiritual and super like trippy with like this level, that level, and trying to map everything out. And we literally need like some sort of map. 1 second. So after all is said and done, what's the punchline, right? Today, there's no visible temple, but you know what we have? Torah study and mitzvot observance. You do it, and it's not all or nothing. Anytime you study Torah, boom, you got God. Anytime you do a mitzvah, boom, you got God. Just like God was found in the tablets, because that was the holiest space on earth, so to speak. Today, God has us studying Torah and doing a mitzvah, and that's how we connect. That's an incredible concept. So after all the philosophy of Tanya is said and done, what's the point? Study Torah, do mitzvot. I know it sounds simple, right? But it's like, what else? What were we expecting, right? What else is going to be the punchline, right? Go bicycling? That's also good. That's good for our health. But what else would Tanya conclude with other than study Torah and do another mitzvah, right? That's literally what we're down to here. And it's a beautiful thing. Next week, 1 second, I'm almost done. Next week, we conclude the book of the first part of the book. There's multiple parts, but this is like the main. When we talk about Tanya, this is like what people typically think, people typically refer to. 53 chapters of Tanya. Next week is the big siyum. Bring some celebratory food or drink, and we'll celebrate together. I'll probably have some seltzer, empty seltzer. This one has some.
Right, Rabbi, am I going to get a diploma?
You know what? We should do diplomas, right? Master of Tanya letters or something. We have to create some sort of
Yeah.
diploma or diplomatic. That's not the right word. Diploma lingo.
We got a certificate for one of the JLI courses a few
Yeah.
like a year or
You
two
know
ago.
what? I feel like I should do that more often because I got the template anyway. Might as well, right? It's
So
just a matter
Rabbi,
of.
when did we begin? How many years? You were
I
on
was thinking
Greenwood
about that
Avenue.
this morning. I was literally thinking about that this
No, it
morning.
was before Greenwood Avenue. It was like when we were up in the loft of the building.
I don't, you know what? I'm trying to remember when we started Tanya. I'm going to look at my email. Tanya, Thursday night. It's going to take me a while on my phone because I can't.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, this is not a good way to do it. Nah, it gets cut off over here. You know what I mean? If you want to, just give me a quick second. I can look this up. Tanya, Thursday night. Let me look at this in my, just going to hit next in my Gmail, my archived emails, and see where it goes back to. Wow, there's a lot of emails, and I'm just in 2020. Hold on one
Oh,
second.
no, don't, yeah.
All right.
No, I'm also curious as to when this thing is, when we started this.
All right.
It's got to be a number of years. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I just looked on my Amazon. I had to order the big red Tanya book, November the 29th, 2015, because we ran out of the other volumes that they stopped.
Yeah. Good. I'm looking at 2013.
Oh, yeah, it was before.
I'm looking at 2012.
Yeah.
Tanya returns Thursday night. I'm looking at, hold on, let's see. 2000 and hold on. I see 2011.
I think it was before then.
Yeah.
Hold on. It's possible that we started again at some point, but I'm looking at 2010. Tanya's back. Tanya reminder, A Tale of Two Souls. Tanya Thursday at 8.
Wasn't it before then?
It's probably before then also. I see 2009.
Yeah, I was going to say 2008, maybe.
New Tanya study group. Hold on. It looks like I found it. (2009).
And do you have who was in the class?
Let me see. Let me try to find that original email. I see a reply to it, but where's my email about it? New Tanya study group, important information. Let me see if I can
Who you sent it?
search for that. Let me see something here. Okay. Here we go. I sent this email January 9th, 2009. I don't have who's on it. I can't see anybody. That's weird. I must have sent it from a different thing. I'm very excited to announce that we are beginning our new Tanya study group. Our first meeting will take place this Thursday, January 15th. This is 2009. At 8 p.m., we will meet at my home, which then was 811 Greenwood Avenue, corner of Greenwood and Bonaventure. The text we'll be using is Opening the Tanya by Rabbi Edin Steinsaltz. The book is available for order at Barnes & Noble, etc. This is when it was still in print. It's not in print anymore. I'm looking to see, I don't have a list of who was on it. I literally do not have a list.
Well,
some
I want
reason.
a special plaque.
Yeah, you should get a special plaque. I'm just trying to see of where I have. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
It's going.
the
It's
last
going.
man
I don't have a list of participants, but I know it's.
And maybe the last man standing. I don't know.
You might be the first and last.
First and last.
Pretty impressive. We've been through a lot. All right, but it's not over yet. We're not closing it out yet. We still have next week for the big celebration, the big finish. Just trying to see if I can find any other information. It's so interesting to look through these old emails and see.
And then do we start to chapter 1? Because I miss.
I know, right? I think we're gonna have to
Yes,
start.
we have
I
to
don't
go
know,
right
we
back
started-
to chapter 1.
right back. We have to start. Well, for sure, we have to start immediately with the next week we'll have to at least read another few, like the first few lines of the beginning,
It's
just to get that
Like
that circle.
Simchas Torah.
Like Simchas Torah, right? You finish the Torah and you scroll back to the beginning. So we'll definitely have to. We'll definitely have to do some of that. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, we'll. I'll consider the options. All right, I'm gonna run because I have a lot of
Children.
kids.
Tell us.
Kids. A
Do you
lot
have
of
new
things.
glasses?
Yeah, I mentioned that before.
Nice. I came late, sorry.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It's yeah, they kind of work. I can see everybody. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm gonna sign off
Okay.
and I'm gonna get these kids to
All
bed.
right.
All right. We'll see you guys
I
soon.
love
Shabbat
her.
Have a
shalom.
good night. Take care.
Shabbos.